Hi everyone. Manas, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, good evening everybody. Thank you for joining in today. And, today being the last day of the May and also coincides with the IIA Awareness Month for us. So a big welcome to all of you for joining in. I hope you're all safe. I'm Sunil Rao, Vice President of IIA-Hyderabad chapter, and I have my very distinguished colleagues with me from Vizag Audit Club, Charith, who is the president, and Tinku Manitsar and Nikhel and TK. So without too much of delay, I would like to just straight get started across. Today we are going to be having very interesting sessions. Nikhel and TK are going to be speaking about the IIA trusted partner in our IIA journeys, in the internal audit journey. Nikhil is going to spend some time and share with us, and also TK on the IIA Awareness Month, what others have been doing, and then I will leave it for TK and Nikhil to discuss on that. Vijay will be also having a session on the IT audit universe, followed by a very interesting session by Manoj. So we're going to be having a 2 hours, next 2 hours of very engaging sessions. Reserve your question and answers by putting it in the Q&A box, and then we'll get these answered as many as we can in the interest of time. So to begin with, let me just do a very short intro of Thiyagarajan Kumar, fondly known as TK. TK needs no introduction. He's got around 34 plus years of experience in the industry, worked across different industries and sectors, Unilever, Times, and also the president of our IIA currently. So TK, very big thank you, and thank you for taking out time to join and address Vizag and Hyderabad chapters post annual conference in April 2021. This is the first session we are having post that. So thank you so much for joining into both of you. If I can
thank
request you.
Sunil. Good evening, and everyone. Congratulations, and happy to be with you again, and you are becoming one of the dynamic chapters under your leadership of Manan, Charith, Tinku, Sunil, all of you. Thought through a nice program for this evening. The topics which you've chosen are really interesting. How can we elevate ourselves to be the trusted partners for our clients, for our associates, and you're focusing on cybersecurity and IT skills, which is really very important. Only yesterday we had an excellent session with Anil Bandari also joining us at Delhi in the North India Regional Council of ICAI, focusing on cybersecurity audit, which was very well received. Most importantly, the topic which you've chosen is something which is new, which is very important, which is not getting the attention which it deserves in this country yet, though the signs of the liability and legal suits on auditors are beginning to appear. Internal auditors are not yet on the mat, but sooner or later they will be. I think Hyderabad, all of you know, I think the internal auditor Satyam is still in the jail, I think, right? I'm not sure. He was the first internal auditor to be arrested apart from the CFO. So it's not a far-fetched situation. Then internal auditor may also be found negligent in his duties. So I think it's a very important topic, and survey has been done, and my colleague friend Deepak is going to engage with the Supreme Court lawyer Mr. Manoj on auditors liability and indemnity. That's an excellent topic, and you're kicking it off during this Audit Awareness Week, which is very good. I hope other chapters do pick up and then elaborate on this, and we begin to have more engagement, more knowledge spread on this very important area. Thanks for being pioneers in putting this topic on the table. And going back to what is that we have been doing in IIA during this IIA Awareness Week, despite our best efforts to physically meet, to have a national conference in May, all our plans went awry. You all read and seen on television what went in Delhi for the last 2 months or so. We are thankful that we are all alive talking to you now, so we couldn't really go ahead with the national conference which we planned. Nevertheless, it was an eventful month because we had 4 webinars where close to 800 people in different sessions went to the challenge IIA Challenge training program on 4 weekends on Saturdays. It was really interesting. There was quite a lot of response, and there was also events conducted by the Women's Forum. Another very interesting topic, which was very lively and engaging, hosted by Mr. Shailesh Haribhakti, hosted by a Women's Forum on ethics and culture and how internal audit can engage in improving ethics and culture, which is very interesting area. A video of that will be available to all our members. It's very important that we learn to handle the softer aspect of culture and ethics, which sometimes is not covered by us in most of the audit planning and audit execution. There are concepts, there are processes that are available on how do we do cultural audits, how do we ensure ethics is well embedded across the organization. That's an interesting area. Again, a newer area which we flagged during this Internal Auditors Awareness Week. And we also had an interaction with Nepal, and interestingly, and Nikhel and I were with the Nepal team of chartered accountants and internal auditors who want to collaborate with us. And we had the first session where more than about 170 people attended, including the senior people from the Reserve Bank of Nepal, which they call. They are keen to engage with us and enhance the internal audit standards and quality in Nepal as well. I'm sure some of our experiences would be relevant for them. We can customize for them, and it will be useful. Both Chennai and Bangalore chapters have had their monthly meetings discussing about topics among their own colleagues and BOG. So it's been a eventful week across the country for all our chapters. Though we could have probably had a larger national conference, hybrid conference with high-profile people in Delhi on live on YouTube, etc., which is a plan, probably focusing on PSUs, but really we could not pull it through. Hopefully it's still on the radar. We should be able to do that. Nevertheless, I think the awareness level of internal audit and what IIA is doing is really high. And thanks to all of you who have actively been supporting the activities, and wish all of you a grand success and a very fruitful, eventful discussions today, this afternoon. Thank you very much, and best wishes to all of you for putting it together. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, TK, and thank you so much for the nice words. And now we'll also have Nikhel, who will be speaking about the role of IIA as a trusted partner in the typical IIA journey for various organizations and teams. Nikhel has been the chief advisor for IIA-India. He's worked across multiple sectors, and we've heard Nikhel speak on various forums. It's a delight to have you, Nikhel, and thank you for joining us. So I would straight hand over to you for you to have this conversation with us and give your insights on this, please.
Thank you so much, Sunil. What I propose to do is to share a small presentation. Is my screen visible to everyone?
Yes.
It is, Nikhel.
Okay, super. So heartiest congratulations to both Hyderabad and chapter and Vizag Audit Club. And what Mr. Menon had requested me to do was to share. Oops, have we lost the screen again?
No, we're good.
Can you see?
I can see.
We can see Nikhil.
Okay,
Good.
I lost it. I lost it in front of my own screen. So anyway, I'm back. I can see my screen now. So without much ado, let's get started. This is a question which a lot of people ask, that what is the benefit which we can derive from being members of the IIA? And I was quite pleasantly surprised when Mr. Menon asked me to prepare it on this particular journey, that how can the IIA be a trusted partner in your professional journey? And I thought it's good to give an answer to that through this PPT. So it will take about 15-20 minutes, and I do hope that you will find some knowledge and information of use to all of you within this. How this is going to be structured is I'm going to be spending 1 or 2 slides, the traditional ones, on IIA's mission, goals and objectives. Then we'll talk a little bit about professionalism. We'll talk about the different certifications which are available from IIA, the benefits of IIA membership, the value proposition of IIA for professionals, what we can do in terms of events and training. And most importantly, as you go down the journey and you're about to reach the peak, what is the value add for chief audit executives and audit committee members? So the basic attempt is that in each step of the journey, which was, those steps which I showed you, there is something which can be done, which you can avail, which you can benefit from the Institute of Internal Auditors, both globally as well as in India. So to repeat, we are proud to be internal auditors. This is absolutely a just-in-time program. The very end of May Awareness Month, Internal Audit Awareness Month, and I do hope that we all have been able to make the most of it. There have been several programs, as DK just mentioned, but while I was talking, I do hope you've been able to look at the words on the mission of internal audit and the ones which I have emphasized, that are we doing enough to enhance and protect our organizational value? Are we providing advice? Are we providing insight? So we have to move from just being protectors and to people who can genuinely add value, enhance value, and you can only do that by using technology, by gaining insights and analyses, and by providing advice. So what do we do on a global basis as far as the profession is concerned? Certainly one thing which we do is advocate and promote the value that internal audit professionals can add to the organizations they are working with or they are working for. Similarly, we cannot ignore the fact that the only globally recognized standards and other professional practice guidance comes from the IIA. Apart from the fact that we do education, provide development opportunity, as well as certification programs. And finally, last but not the least, I'm also going to show you a few of these, but there is a lot of research, dissemination of knowledge, as well as practical guidance to professionals, to practitioners, as to how this knowledge can be properly used in your roles within the control, risk management, governance, and internal audit realms. What are our key pillars of success? First of all, we want a stronger profession where we are able to engage with all the stakeholders. Today, just looking at what the management wants or what the audit committee requires from us is not enough. We do have to take it beyond that. We have to look at maybe the culture of the organization. We have to look at every potential area where we can add value, as well as identify risks. Let's not forget how successful or unsuccessful most of us were in predicting the risk of the pandemic on a global basis. So we really need to up our game. The second aspect, are we competent? Do we have the knowledge, the skills, the competencies, the proficiencies to deliver as members on our stakeholder expectations and demonstrate the value? So first of all, do we engage with our stakeholders to identify what they want? Secondly, do we make sure that we are competent enough to deliver? And ultimately, the value which is delivered to all members on a global basis has to be done in a sustainable manner so that we can continue to add value on an ongoing basis. So just a little minute or so to talk about professionalism. What does professionalism really require? All of us are professionals. We require ongoing learning, ongoing growth. We have to understand what the IPPF is all about. I've said this before and I'll say it again. The standards are all of 20 pages if you remove the index and the glossary. 20 pages, and you can read them every 3 months, every 6 months. It will not take you too much of time. Each time you read them, you will find a new nugget of information which will help you in improving your professionalism. There are a host of resources which are available for your professional development. We are doing training on location, certainly not right now, but otherwise we've been doing it in the past and we'll definitely do it in the future. The huge number of online and otherwise printed publications and periodicals, programs which are being curated for your specific needs including the one which we are having today. Quality and benchmarking services which are available to make sure that you are on a professional journey within your organization. Your internal audit function is on that journey, which is benchmarking itself against global standards. And finally, products and research reports, which again will help us to add to our professionalism. Now, let us assume that you are a baby when it comes to internal audit. You are still in college, just out of college, and you're thinking of what you want to do. You're looking at possibly going in for a CIA certification. How can you start? The way you can start today is by going in for an internal audit practitioner badge. So this is now a certification which is offered by the IIA. It shows that you have foundational knowledge of internal audit in addition to your aptitude for it. And there are certain work experience levels depending on what qualifications you have. If you're a chartered accountant, many of you would know you could probably sit for the challenge exam in one sitting, but there are others who may not have been able to complete their college, people who may not have been able to complete their graduation. So for those, this is a new way. And I'm not just saying that this is relevant for you. This knowledge is relevant for you because tomorrow you may be able to help another person who's not as fortunate as you are in terms of qualifications to probably find a new way of entering the profession and gaining a certification which would allow them to get a lifelong exposure to this wonderful profession. This is a screenshot which I downloaded today. This is very much from the IIA global website, and it talks about the certification suite which we have. Some of our core, certifications, the one which I've just spoken to you about for beginners, the IA Internal Audit Practitioner. Then, of course, the one which I think most of us are familiar with, the Certified Internal Auditor. And finally, the top of the pops, the one, I think we only have one, Mr. N.G. Shankar in India, who has actually cleared this, the Quality in Internal Audit Leadership, the QIAL. But in addition to that, you can improve your skills by doing a CCSA, controlled self-assessment, very useful for risk management programs. You can do your CRMA, even more useful for risk management programs. And of course, if you look at EHS, which is a growing field, environment, health, safety, we do have certifications for that. Of course, there are also other certifications which would be focused on those working either in the government, the CGAP, or in financial services, etc. So I think many of you, we have been trying to advocate this for a few months, are familiar with the challenge exam, but for those of you who are not, the challenge exam allows those of you who are from 17 qualified accounting bodies which have been listed by the IIA in its website, as well as will be listed on IIA-India's website as well, to sit for the CIA in one sitting. Normally, the CIA program certification examination consists of 3 parts which have to be cleared separately. The challenge exam allows you to sit for the 3 parts in one sitting. There is just one 3-hour exam which with about 150 MCQs, and if you answer those correctly, you need to get I think a minimum of 80%. So it's not easy, but if you get those 600 marks out of 750, well, you can become a CIA much quicker than a person who's following the longer route. Again, a partial answer to what are the benefits of memberships for us. This is for the youngsters specifically. Of course, there are a huge number of benefits in addition to this, but I will just talk about some of them. If you're getting this qualification when you're on the job, you have anything to do with internal audit, it will enhance your career progression as well as your earning potential. There are certain surveys available on the net which talk about how much more you can earn if you have the CIA certification. But according to me, I mean, even if you're not an internal auditor, if you've got a CIA certification, I think the kind of knowledge which you get on internal controls, on risks, on planning, the attributes which professionals are supposed to possess, the values by which we should be working, on the discipline under which we should be working, I'm sure you would still be a professional, a better professional, regardless of what you do. The other beauty of this certification, CIA certification, is that it is globally recognized. So there are some degrees which we may have which don't have global recognition. Sometimes we have two-way arrangements, but you still have to go to another country. If you're looking for a job, you have to sit for an exam. This is something which is globally recognized. A CIA certification is globally accepted wherever internal audit is recognized as a profession. And of course, I'm talking about more than 170 countries, 110 affiliates across the world, which the IIA globally consists of. One thing which you also cannot ignore is if you want any of these additional certifications, certainly look at doing it from India, look at getting a IIA-India membership, because the kind of discounts which you get over here are perhaps the highest discounts, so you pay actually less money than anyone else anywhere else in the world. Okay, so that is I think a big motivator. And I think for the CIA challenge exam we were working out, chartered accountants from India probably get close to a 70% benefit. So, the discounts are substantial. We have social media groups. I mean, these social media groups sometimes drive me crazy because I find that I'm a member of something like 50 or 60 WhatsApp groups, all only for the IIA. So, of course, you don't have to become a member of 60 groups. Probably 2 or 3 would suffice. But there are some extremely active groups and a lot of very, very inquisitive internal auditors, which is great because I think internal auditors have to be inquisitive and curious by nature, and they have to learn to ask the right questions. Free resume posting, trying to help people who are looking for jobs. I see so many of these postings and vacancies being posted on these WhatsApp groups. The advice and resources, not only on social media, but on the website, absolutely amazing. I'll show you some of those. And if you want to progress in your career, do not forget that if you start volunteering, speak at conferences, to write articles, to contribute to research, you have to start somewhere. I mean, today, public speaking is something I'm very comfortable with, but I started when I was in hostel by being a member of a debating society, and I came last in the English, in the English debates. There were 8 houses, and I came last. But the point is, today I'm speaking to all of you comfortably. So regardless of where you start, the journey can only go upwards. But you have to make that effort. You have to take that initiative. Please do keep that in mind. And the quality of training inputs which you get are really comparable to none. They're absolutely par for the course, absolutely brilliant. So I had told you earlier, do look at the standards, which are a significant component of the IPPF. In addition to that, you've got some amazing implementation and supplemental guidances which are available. And pick up those snippets. If you're, for example, wanting to improve an ERM process in your organization or for a client, go through the recommended guidance which is available from the IIA. It is absolutely top class. It will clear your fundas. It will help you in actually doing it. And then, of course, your groups can also help you, give you practical advice. Certification is something I've already discussed. Training, well, this is also a training program. We do have so many conferences, seminars, PDMs. We had last year, I think we actually hit a record. We crossed 135 training programs between April and March. Of course, we were all getting used to sitting at home and we were enjoying all these learnings which were available. But certainly, I think online training is here to stay and we will continue to do that. We also converted into a monthly periodical, the Internal Auditor Day, which would be released for the month of May, I think within a day or two. Absolutely fantastic stuff from IIA-India. And of course, those of you who've read the Global Journal, if you haven't, please remember it's a part of your membership fees. The articles are absolutely outstanding. Do please make the most of it. You can on LinkedIn, I mean, I've got, connects from I don't know how many countries. The minute they see a CIA or an internal audit professional, you to connect with another one, any part of the world, maybe one which you haven't visited and would like to, go ahead, do it. And that's the way, you will network and you can learn from each other. So multiple benefits if you look at what all I'm saying. For those of you who have your own firm, for those of you who are into the professional services business, the IIA has actually got a template, and this is what I'm showing you right now, where you can make a presentation to your stakeholders about the value of internal auditing. You can put in your own photographs, you can put in your own name, and you can actually customize the services which you're providing based on what you actually do. And I think it's immensely of use, especially to those people who may have started off relatively recently in the profession, or who don't have the same level of global knowledge as maybe some of the top-notch firms. I think it's extremely useful, where within a few slides what you can say is what is the value proposition of internal auditing, in terms of assurance, insight, objectivity, and what are the components of each of these, in terms of the values, the GRC areas where you add value, and of course the fact that you can provide a lot of analyses and assessments to act as a catalyst of positive change for the organizations you work for. Suppose you've been in the journey for a little while, you've been a practicing internal auditor for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and you say, where do I go from here? So let me give you a small suggestion. This is again something which I downloaded today from the net, from the IIA's global website. There is something known as an internal audit competency framework. You can measure yourself on the pillars of professionalism, performance, environment, leadership and communications. Find that one area where you would like to improve yourself. Don't try to do 20 things at one time. Get out a practice or a supplemental guide or some articles, work on it, improve yourself, and then move on to the next. I mean, how are you going to become a better professional? This is a great benchmarking tool. And I think this one came out in 2018 or 19, the graphical format for the internal audit competency framework. There was one in 2013, which breaks up each one of 10 components into subsets of 20 questions. And you don't have to show it to anyone else. You're just answerable to yourself, unless you want to do it for your department or you want to evaluate another person or another organization's internal audit department. All these are immensely practical tools to move up the ladder, to move up the path, to climb up the steps towards becoming a better internal auditor. I had told you I'm going to be showing you, I mean, I think today everyone likes nice, colorful graphics. So, well, here we are. This is just some of the stuff. I've got 2 slides of these, which are going to tell you what all we come up with. Second from left on the top, the multiple internal auditor magazines, which come out every 2 months from IIA. You want to focus on fraud detection, data analytics. Do you want to talk about on risk? It's again a beautiful perspective where they are comparing for the same risk the perspectives of top management, the board, and internal audit. And if there are too many differences, obviously you are the one who's going to present it to the management and ask them to plug it, because you don't want a high sense of overconfidence on the risk management processes, whereas the internal auditor feels that there's a huge scope for improvement. These are the things which you can be genuinely adding value with. And most of these publications are available for free because many of them are research publications from the Internal Audit Foundation. Fraud and internal audit. How do we respond to disruptive innovation? How do we do an agile internal audit? Of course, if you were there for the Madras chapter seminar, this lady Kalpita from Deloitte gave an absolutely wonderful, presentation on agile internal audit. But if you missed it, well, here is something which you can read. Data analytics, cybersecurity, adding value with COSO, the 3 lines model, moving into the digital age. You can just go on and on. This is just a small sample. It's a small peek at the huge world of knowledge which exists within the internal audit IIA bookstore. And as I repeat, all the research, and knowledge and research section of the IIA global website. Pick up one once in a week, once in 2 weeks, go through them. And let me assure you that you will feel energized, you will feel more knowledgeable, you will find something to make a note of and to do it better. We have access to global training modules, about 25, 30 of them. And, each of these are, by and large, 2 to 3 day, 4-day programs. But, because of the pandemic, because of online teaching, we have managed to compress this, many of these to 4 hours or 8 hours. And we offer you again, this is global material benchmarked to international standards. Whether you want to do audit report writing, you want to learn on cyber security, you want to learn about ITGC, IT audits, risk management processes, internal controls. There's a whole host of these, and I'm not sure if I have a slide in this PPT, but we'll see. And I've already been speaking about the networking opportunities and the kind of programs, 135 plus programs, 140 plus programs which we've done till date, and the fact that we are in a position to actually customize programs which are based on your organizational requirements. So if you represent a corporate, or you can get together 2-3 corporates which say want a program to be done on risk management, preparation of risk registers, or data analytics, or robotic process automation, believe you me, the IIA has got more than 50 trainers, most of whom have 20 or 30 years plus of experience, who can help you in getting there. Yes, I do have this slide. So advanced risk-based auditing, improving business processes, building a sustainable quality program, which we're going to be doing on 18th and 19th of June, if I'm not mistaken. Preparing for the CI exam, which has just been happening, 15th, 22nd, and 29th of May, we held these 3 programs. Corporate governance, strategies for internal audit, COSO-based internal auditing, critical thinking. So whether it is soft skills or technical skills, the IIA can definitely help you in your professional journey. And as I mentioned right in the beginning, finally, what happens if you reach close to the peak of your career? You are a chief audit executive, or you're going to become a chief audit executive within a couple of years. Even if you are in the audit committee, we have something known as Stone at the Top, which provides senior management, boards, audit committees with concise information, 2 to 4 pages on governance related topics. And these are titles which I've actually copied and printed onto my own laptop. Can boards challenge management effectively? What is the board's role in an internal audit plan? Should they even be involved or not? How do you judge the health of a corporate governance program post-COVID? Can we have good governance at the speed of change? What are governance benchmarks? What is data governance? CAEs and shareholders' expectations. All of these will give you enough pointers for you to create your own audit programs. And let me assure you, everyone today is interested in improving corporate governance, especially the more mature organizations. Everyone wants you to understand, because if you understand what the stakeholders' expectations are, that is when you will be able to fulfill their requirements in a better paper. position papers on fraud, on risk management, on the 3 lines model, on staffing considerations, what kind of training program should you have? And there are multiple pronouncements and publications from the IIA on how to develop a better team. A CAE center, this is something which costs, it doesn't come for free, but they have 3 levels, and it is available for chief audit executives, and you have people from across the world where they are benchmarking, they are networking, they are training, and they've got surveys which they both contribute to as well as share the results of with you. Global perspectives and insights, the GPI as I call it, on agility, on top risks faced by the chief audit executives, on artificial intelligence, auditing a framework of artificial intelligence, the CBOC, which is the central body of knowledge, which is again available again on a global basis, normally over 100+ countries, thousands of people responding, and every aspect. And what is the global thinking in different parts of the world, as well as on a consolidated basis in this common body of knowledge. And as I told you earlier, quality assurance. Today, I think that is a future for internal audit functions which are even slightly evolved. Can we start embarking on a journey which brings us to closer conformance to the IPPF, to the standards, and to the various program and practice guides which the IIA comes up with? So I do hope I've been able to give you enough food for thought on how to wish you a successful partnership with IIA, how we can be a trusted partner with you on your professional journey. Wishing you all the very best, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nikhil, for a very, very insightful session. I think after this session, I'm sure there'll be a lot of more enrollments coming in for the various programs of CIA. Thanks again for keeping it so current as well. Nikhil, we do have some compliments and also questions coming in the Q&A. If I can just run you through 2 quick ones, please.
Please.
One is a participant has asked the CIA program, if he wants to take through 3 parts after he's finished his chartered accountancy course, would that need an experience of 1 year or is it 2 years? I guess it was more in terms of to be counter articles.
Sure. So what they require is that if you are a chartered accountant, the chances are with your 3 years of articleship, you would have already got the requisite number of years. So whilst you are doing your chartered accountancy, or after you clear your chartered accountancy, if you do your CIA, I don't think you would be needing any further experience. Otherwise, what they say is if you've got a master's degree, you need 1 year of internal audit experience. If you have a bachelor's equivalent, then you need 2 years of audit experience to claim your certification, which means you can sit for the exam beforehand, and the minute you clock your 2 years or 1 year or whatever is applicable, if you don't have any degree at all, you could just be a 12th class pass out. If you've got 5 years that's when you need 5 years of experience to sit for it, unless you have the internal audit practitioner badge, which you can do with 0 experience, and that allows you to sit for the CIA. And as soon as you get the requisite number of years of experience, you get your degree as well, your certification as well. I hope I've answered your question. Anything else, Sunil?
Yes, there is one request that the internal audit competency framework is a great infographic. Do we have this in our IIA website?
I would expect so. Otherwise, if you just write a mail to me or to Chanchal, I'll be happy to share it with you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Nikhil. Thank you for the wonderful session. So with that said, we move on to our next session and speaker, and let me give it to Charith, who is the Vizag Audit Club president and my fellow colleague. So Charith, over to you for the next immediate session. Thank you so much, Nikhil and TK again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sunil. So, greetings to all. And as an introduction, I am Charith Wickramasuriya. I am currently in Vizag. I've taken up the operation role of head of finance for Brandex India Apparel City, which is a 1,000-acre SEZ apparel park dedicated to textile and apparel. Brandex is a multinational apparel manufacturer, and I have been in Brandex for almost 8 years now. I have worked in their headquarters in Colombo for about 4 years, after which I moved to India to take up my position around 4 years back. It gives me immense warmth and great pleasure to grace all of your presence in this interest of the Institute of Internal Audit, IIA-India, the Hyderabad chapter and the Vizag club. It gives me tremendous contentment to be part of the most esteemed personalities who have taken great strides in their respective fields. Having said this, it gives me even more pleasure to state that this is the maiden webinar for our members under the Vizag Audit Club, which I am sure will set the official foundation and the tone of great things to come ahead for our members. I believe as at midday today, there were almost 150 registrations, and we ended up with more than 190. I think a quick check a few moments ago, we had surpassed 100 attendees. So I think there is a great amount of interest amongst all of us for today's topic. Before we begin the webinar, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to all of you who sincerely committed to getting this up and running. Without you, its success wouldn't be possible, especially the office bearers of the Hyderabad chapter. This event wouldn't have been possible without the support of each and every one of them, who took out a lot of precious time from their busy schedules, especially in today's dynamic climate unseen by all professionals ever before. The seminars are organized and conducted to gain insight and information that would remain effective in our lives, in exercises, and in the workplace. The topic for discussion in today's seminar was chosen keeping these objectives in mind, and furthermore, as a celebration of the Internal Audit Awareness Month. The topic of discussion for today's seminar is the changing role of internal auditors, IT audit universe, and skills for IT audit by Mr. Vijay, and also legal risks, board members, management, and internal auditors, liability and indemnification by Mr. Manoj. I would first like to thank Mr. Vijay on behalf of the Vizag Club in collaboration with IIA Hyderabad chapter in accepting our invitation. It truly is a pleasure. As an introduction, Mr. Vijay is the Managing Director with Protiviti India and leads South India Pacific and a dedicated focus on IT consulting services. He has more than 15 years of experience where he led and assisted the clients across domestic and international markets on IT control, reviews, SOX, cybersecurity, data security, and privacy, ERP service, SAP, JRC, assurance reviews, and ISO 27001 implementation and audits. His international experience include working for clients across US, Singapore, Australia, UK, and the Middle East regions. Having said this, I hand over the center stage to Mr. Vijay to take up the first session. Sorry?
Vijay, can you hear us, please? Vijay, can you hear us? There could be some bandwidth challenges, looks like.
Yeah.
Vijay, can you hear us?
So I think he has dropped out due to some network issues.
Menas, Vijay has just texted me saying that I think he had some issues, so he's going to log in. So let's give him a minute's time. He's going to log in again. Yeah, the moment you see him online, if there's a need, you can just unmute him if he's on auto mute.
Okay.
Sunil, you may want to check with him if he's all right. If he needs more time, maybe we can, give some more time and then go ahead with the next session.
Yeah, I think that's what we'll do, sir. I'll just let me call up and just check. But we can go ahead. Charith, apologies, there was some technical issue and the other participants. I think we are going to just make quick correction. So we're going to have minutes, or maybe you may want to just take it up to begin with, and then we'll swap the sessions accordingly. Thank you. Yeah, minutes are over to you.
Okay, thank you, Sunil. And good evening to you all. We have a very interesting session ahead, which is of critical interest and concern to the internal audit fraternity. Just because we have been witnessing a spate of corporate scandals in recent years, and it's increasing trend. More and more auditors are finding themselves in the docks for a variety of reasons. A very small share of such cases could be due to the auditor's complicity, and a few can be attributed to negligence, either covert or overt. And a large number to lack of or inadequate awareness of the legal risk involved in the profession. So it is in this context that the issue of liability and indemnification assumes importance, and that is the reason why we have scheduled this session today on a day that marks the conclusion of the Internal Audit Awareness Month. Our guest this evening is Advocate Manoj, a renowned name in the legal circles with over 33 years of professional experience to his credit. After his BCom honors degree from the Sriram College of Commerce, Delhi in 1984, Advocate Manoj completed the LLB from the Delhi University in 1987. In 1988, he received a scholarship from Cambridge University, UK, to pursue LLM, and in 1989, an opportunity to work with Clifford Chance, one of the largest law firms in the UK. After returning to India, Manoj worked in the office of well-known lawyers like Mr. Kapil Sibal and Mr. Toli Saradji, a former Attorney General of India, and who sadly left us all a month ago. In 1996, Manoj qualified as an advocate on record of the Supreme Court. While in Delhi, Manoj has handled legal disputes in all the major courts and tribunals, like the Supreme Court, High Court, the Civil Court, and the Company Law Board, which is now the NCLT, and several other statutory bodies. Since 2000, he heads the Pune office of his law firm J.S. Ward and Company, practice in a wide range of areas that include gap analysis for labor and employment law compliance, then providing infrastructure-related legal support for establishment of businesses across India, professional assistance for a large number of domestic and international contracts, including directors and officers' indemnity contracts, M&A, legal due diligence reviews, advice on contracts and company law, forensic legal audit for investigation into corporate frauds, and so on. I can go on for another half an hour, given the far-reaching variety of areas of expertise and practice, but time constraints force me to stop here. And in conversation with Manoj is Deepak Wadhawan, a name that needs no introduction. Deepak was the CEO of IIA-India and is now a member of the Global Advocacy Committee of the IIA. Let me now hand over to Deepak to kickstart this interesting session. Over to you, Deepak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Menon. It always feels nice to be introduced by someone of your stature, a former head of internal audit at the multilateral agency CRISAT, and with decades in different UN agencies. Thank you. This is Deepak Wadhawan, and I'm in conversation with Manoj, a senior lawyer practicing in the Supreme Court. I extend a warm welcome to you, Manoj, on behalf of myself, the Board of Governors of the IIA-India Hyderabad chapter, members and invitees present today. Welcome, Manoj.
Thank you, Deepak. Thank you all for inviting me here today.
You know, Manoj, I've been going through the timelines of your career journey, and Mr. Menon has just brought out some aspects. And I also find it interesting that after decades of Supreme Court level litigation and corporate law practice, you have chosen to do directors and officers indemnification advisory services as a focus area. It's relatively early days for this, and you are very well settled in the profession. You can't get better than going to the Supreme Court. So I'm curious as to what motivated you to take this pioneering step of advisory services.
Yeah. So Deepak, thank you for asking this question, because a little bit of background is important. I think it was a few years ago that I heard a small interview of Mukesh Ambani, who said that his professor in college asked him that if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to ask yourself the question, what is the problem that is you want to solve? So the difference between an employee and an entrepreneur, without meaning any disrespect to anybody, is the entrepreneur will think about what is the problem that exists and how can I solve it. So as you know, after having done more than about 100 cases in the company law board, I realized one thing, that whether it is the director who is initiating the legal action or whether it is the company or someone else, it is always the director, the CXO level management, and many times the auditors who are on the line. Because a company is a corporate legal entity, it is not made of flesh and blood. And that set me thinking, what are the problems that these three categories face and how I can go about trying to solve it. Now, first of all, let me make it very clear. The directors and officers indemnity agreement is not my brainchild. It is a very well-known contract in Europe and in North America. However, in India, the awareness is next to nothing. So I thought that perhaps this was the right time. 3 years ago, I thought about it. And I thought it perhaps is the right time to introduce this concept because of two very important reasons. One is a purely legal reason. The other is a socio-economical reason. So let's start with the legal reason first. The legal reason is the number of laws that are going to be applicable to companies functioning and as well as to directors, internal auditors, and the CXO level management is going to increase. This is in keeping with the global standards of corporate governance, and the governments want to keep in line with what's happening in the world. So with the increased number of laws applicable to these three categories, that is directors, CXO level management people, and auditors, the vulnerability of these three categories has increased. So that's one thing. A live example of this, about which I will, time permitting, I would like to elaborate later on, is the law of PMLA, the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, which was actually introduced in 2002. But now successive governments have started using it more and more. And I see from my legal research that the number of cases after 2015, so 2015, 2016, 2017, and 18, in these 4 years, the number of cases has increased. Because the governments have realized that by use of this law, you can, the scope of the legal net, as it were, to catch the wrongdoers very broadly increases, and I will come to the reasons why. PMLA is for want of a better word, a very, very severe law. I wouldn't call it draconian, but it is very severe. And also, the dangerous part about the PMLA is that it has the reach outside India also. So if you are holding a product of crime which is outside India, you are liable no matter what role you are playing with the company. So that's one. The socio-economic reason which I have observed, and I'm sure you will agree, is that in the last 15 years, the way I see the corporate India growing, there are a lot of startups and a lot of small companies which have come up, where there is a combination of young first generation entrepreneurs, which sits on the board as board of directors. And these board of these directors, they come from some specific geographical areas of the country. So you can say there is Punjab, there is Rajasthan, Gujarat, Maharashtra, and South India. So if you take most of the boards which I have dealt with have somebody from this one state or the other. Now, culturally, India is a very diverse country, and we all come from very varied educational, social, financial backgrounds. So what we carry to the board is also what we are. And I am assuming for this discussion that 100% of the directors are acting bona fide in the interest of the company. Nobody wants to do anything wrong. Similarly, the CXO level management and the internal auditors are all acting in the interest of the company and discharging their duty to the best of their ability. Having said that, what is in the benefit of the company, one, and whether it falls foul of the law and which law is applicable, that sometimes we may not know. And because of that, there is an increased number of cases against companies, and when company is involved, the directors are involved. Most of the times, I would imagine, without the fault. That is my own experience with my own clients, as well as the research I have done about the case law. So that is the answer. But this got me interested in not pioneering really, but getting into an area where I thought that I should provide a very specific remedy to directors, CXO level management, and auditors for the compensation that for the injuries they suffer related to work.
Oh, that's very interesting. You helped us think through about how we look at our risks as internal auditors in this nowadays it's fraud-prone environment, and there is so much of management fraud happening. Also, there is this volatile, like you said, uncertain, ambiguous, environment. So, as internal auditors and other assurance providers, that got us to think a little bit as to how do we stand in terms of our liability, insurance, and indemnity. And we did a small survey, as a run-up to this interview. And I'm going to request Manoj to please give us the screen. We've got responses, not many responses. We've got 35 responses to specific questions, which we asked, 4 questions. So if I can just request Manoj to allow me to show my screen.
Yes, sir. I have given you the access, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. I got it. So I think you can see my screen now. Can you see my screen, Manoj?
Yes, I can.
Oh,
yes,
great. So this is a result of a SNAP survey on internal auditor insurance and indemnity. We carried out this online survey and we got 35 respondents. And the first question, of course, was that, are you aware of the, oh, I'm sorry, this has just gone out. Yeah, just give me a moment. Are you aware of the requirements of non-compliance of laws and regulations in the revised ICAI Code of Ethics? Basically, there is this international ethics standards board for accountants globally, which has got now requirements of accountants to essentially look at non-compliance of laws and regulations, and most of the major professional institutes have incorporated it in their code of ethics. In 2020 revision, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India have incorporated the NOC-LAR requirements in our code of ethics too. And a majority of internal auditors today, their origins are from professional accountants, and especially from ICAI. So in addition to whatever liabilities we have under the various laws, we are also required to follow the code of ethics, ICAI code of ethics, most of us. And it is in line with what is expected of a professional accountant to have a sense of duty of public interest. So if there is non-compliance of laws and regulations, we are supposed to be looking and dealing with it as per the code of ethics. Now, out of the 35 respondents, 65% said that they were not aware of the NOC-LAR. That's a very large percentage, although it's a small sample size, but 65% are not aware of this requirement of the code of ethics. So that was our first observation. The second is, today, of course, everyone has a directors and officers insurance policy in their companies, or they're aware of it, but is there one in the internal auditor's favor? 71% of the 35 responses said no, and 28% said yes, the employer has taken it out for them. So again, it's a very large percentage who do not have insurance policies. Then the third aspect was, is there an indemnity agreement in your favor as internal auditors where the company will indemnify you in case of any issues as going to courts, if there's a management fraud and you are not in the wrong? So would you be indemnified? Out of which 77% said no, they don't have an agreement like that. 14% said yes, we have an agreement, but it is and it is well articulated. But 8% of the one said that it's a general in nature, the agreement, and loosely worded. Yes. So again, 77% do not have an indemnity agreement. 71% do not have a D&O insurance policy in their favor, and 65% do not know this very important code of ethics regarding NOC-LAR. Then we asked, what is your perception of personal safety while executing your role? So on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the highest concern level for personal safety, we found that 9% had, 7% had the highest concern, 14% had very high concern. Roughly only, I would say 23% had concern level 1 and 2. So again, over 75% had very high concern about their personal safety. Now, Manoj, in this, although the sample size is limited, but it does show a trend of replies.
Absolutely.
So I wanted your views actually. What acts the employer can do by themselves, or the regulatory authorities require them to do, to improve safety for internal auditors and assurance providers, so that any reasonable person in that role can feel free from concerns regarding legal repercussions or encumbrances, and can perform their work and in an independent and objective manner in this volatile, uncertain, ambiguous, complex, and fraud-prone environment. Your views, please, Manoj.
So Deepak, I would request you to keep this screen, the questions that you have put, because I might request you to shuffle back and forth, because my answers are, this is beautiful. I think these questions are very articulate and very incisive, and never mind the sample size. These are very, very important factors which I wanted to discuss in any case, but you have very nicely put them in perspective. So let me start with so first of all, what is the basis of D&O, that is Directors and Officers Indemnity Agreement? Now it is called a Directors and Officers Indemnity Agreement, but the way I have drafted this agreement for my clients, it can very easily be adapted to cover the risks of the internal auditors or auditors very easily. Okay, what is the basis? The basis is this. Look at a typical manufacturing company where there are blue-collared workmen and then there are white-collared executives and directors. So the day a blue-collar workman joins a manufacturing company and starts working, he is covered by a law which compulsorily makes the company compensate him for the injuries he suffers related to work. Now, for a blue-collar workman who works on a shop floor with his hands or sometimes his legs, the injuries suffered are cuts and burns, then there is amputation of hands or feet, or there is death. Now, for these injuries, depending on the number of years that he is employed with the company, there is a proper tariff and he is paid a substantial sum as compensation for the injuries that he may suffer. Shift to now the top two echelons and include in that the third echelon of the internal auditors. These three who are would be called the white collar people, the white collar top echelons and advisors to the company. There is no law in India which compensates these three categories of people for the injuries they suffer at work. Now, somebody will say, what injuries do they suffer at work? I will tell you, all you have to do is you have to take out any business newspaper of the last 3 years and you will know exactly what I mean. Let us take Chanda Kochhar's example. Having risen to that level, she was dismissed very, very summarily. Now, what are the injuries that directors, CXO level management, and auditors have been facing and will face more in future? First of all, anything goes wrong, they are the ones who are summoned, and I'm strictly speaking about the criminal action right now. Any criminal action that starts against the company, the first people who will be summoned to the court are the directors, the CXO level management, and the internal auditors, for obvious reasons. Now, imagine your name, the moment that happens, your name is flashed in the newspapers, it enters the internet, and the troublesome part about the internet is that the material goes in, it never comes out. So nobody is interested in reporting that such and such an auditor was prosecuted, but he has been found to be innocent of the charges. Nobody is interested in reporting that. Everybody is only interested in reporting who got prosecuted, who got jailed, who got fined. So there is loss of reputation. Third, sometimes, and I'm not saying the managements do it deliberately, this happens, it is very easy to blame the internal auditor, and therefore he or she gets blamed, the firm gets blamed. In the Tech Mahindra case, there were 3 PricewaterhouseCoopers auditors who were sent to jail. There is another case decided by SEBI in 2018, the RICO case, where the SEBI has sentenced the internal auditor once again. Now, apart from this, there are fines and there is imprisonment. So all this put together, there is tremendous amount of mental trauma that these 3 categories of people also suffer, are suffering and will suffer more. And yet, there is no law in India which, unlike for a blue-collar workman, even tries to compensate or recognizes these injuries as work-related injuries and compensates them. Now, why am I saying that these 3 categories of people need to be compensated by the company? The logic is very simple, that the board of directors and the CXO level management people are working for 10 to 12 hours for the company. They are not doing their own work. Similarly, the internal auditor is using all his skills and hard work in the benefit of the company. Therefore, if there is any criminal litigation involving the company, and because of which the board of directors, the management, and the auditors get embroiled in such criminal litigation, it is the duty of the company to make sure that these 3 people are compensated for all the sufferings that they go through, which I have just named. Now, this is a well-known concept in Europe and in North America. Directors and well-known audit firms demand it as a matter of right before they start the work with the company. That if you want us as a director, if you want me as a senior manager, if you want me as an auditor, please cover me by a D&O indemnity agreement, which is an agreement between the individual auditor or the director and the company. It has nothing to do with D&O insurance. So having made this concept clear about what is a D&O agreement, D&O agreement is an agreement or a contract between the one individual who is acting for the company in the capacity of the director or manager or internal auditor and the company itself. And it's a far broader agreement which protects people not only when they are employed or when they are directors or when they are auditors, but also for a period thereafter, because your liability can continue even if your contract with the company gets ended. That is the basis for a D&O indemnity agreement. DNO insurers, unfortunately, and I'm not casting any aspersions on the insurance business as such. I'm just telling you the difference. DNO insurance is a contract between the insurance company and the company where you are a director, manager, or an internal auditor. And you are not a party to that insurance contract. And I have reviewed all the major insurance policies in the market going on just now. And after that, I'm making this statement that you are not a party. You are covered as a beneficiary. Internal auditors are not, because they are the DNO insurance relates to employees. Most of them relate to only employees. If you are an outside consultant and internal auditor, unless you are an employee, you are not covered. So an outside consultant will not be covered. That's 2. Number 3, the directors and officers, the DNO insurance has a lot of disclaimers where the insurance company is making it very clear that we will not cover the person concerned for the following reasons. Now, logically, no insurance company can survive unless the number of disclaimers is high. Okay, by definition, if the insurance company starts paying every claim, then it cannot do business. Now, what are the kind of disclaimers that the DNO insurance company has? 1, if there is mental trauma, you will have to go to a psychiatrist, which we recommend with our prior approval. If you don't do that, we will not pay the fees that you have paid. But there is no compensation for mental trauma as such. Number 2, we will not pay for litigation expenses unless you go to a lawyer that we choose for you, and we will decide whether to compromise the case or not. So you don't have a choice of a lawyer that you need. Now, we know that in today's world, there are specialist lawyers, and the position at which the director, the senior management, or the auditor is working, the choice should be given to these people to decide which lawyer they want to go to. But no insurance company allows that. Third, if there is prior litigation, that means before you join, we will not cover you. But the point is that the effect of that litigation can visit you even after you join in any of these capacities. Fourthly, most importantly, no insurance company is willing to cover you after your contract with the company comes to an end. So if you're no longer a director, they will not cover you. If you're no longer a senior management, they will not cover you. And if you're no longer an auditor, they will not cover you. Whereas your liability continues. Okay. So like this, there are disclaimers. DNO insurance is a financial cushioning for the company. It is not a matter of comfort for the individual. And lastly, I'm very sad to say that the cases that I have seen is that it all depends on the individual's relationship with the board of directors, because they are finally the people who will make a decision whether to extend the benefit of the DNO insurance to you or not. And God forbid, if you have rubbed the board of directors on the wrong side for any reason, there is a very strong possibility, and this has happened in front of me, that you will not get the benefit of the insurance. So that now, Deepak, if you could go back to your first slide about the non-compliance. Yes. Now, this is a very, very important issue. The directors and officers indemnity agreement, which I draft, has only 2 exceptions. 2 exceptions where the company can say that we will not compensate you, Mr. Auditor, we will not compensate you for the injuries that you have suffered, namely, you have been called to court, you have hired a lawyer, there is loss of reputation, you have lost the license to practice, you have been fined or you have been jailed, but we will not cover you. Why? Because you did not comply with the non-compliance of laws, regulations clause. If you have breached the code of ethics that the professional body like the ICAI has mandated for you, that you have to follow this code of ethics, then the company is fully within its rights to say that we will not compensate you. So this clause becomes fundamentally important to all my auditor friends who are listening to me. Okay, that's one. Second clause, the second exception to my DNO agreement is that if you have done something which is so patently illegal that you don't need to be a lawyer to understand that, so hit and run, bribery of a police of a government a government officer, anything that can be traced to you, which everybody knows is wrong, and you have done it, then the company will be fully within its rights to deny you. But for these two exceptions, my D&O agreement, indemnity agreement, covers all other instances regardless. So that becomes very, very important.
So thank you for clarifying, Manoj, the differences between D&O insurance and internal auditor indemnity agreement. Very useful, and for those viewers who have signed in just now, we are in conversation, having an audit chat with Manoj Vad, Supreme Court lawyer, on the issue of internal auditor liability, insurance, and indemnity. This is part of the IIA-Hyderabad MPW Internal Audit Dialogue Series for educational and general awareness purposes only. I'd like to mention at this point that in case you wish to act on any thoughts arising of the discussion, do take professional legal opinion before acting. We disclaim any responsibility. And going forward, please roll in your questions in the chat box, which we will take up from time to time. And now, Manoj, this is really, really serious stuff. But before that, tell us, how did you go to, how was your initial education, and especially your full scholarship to Cambridge, and how was the experience working there in a global environment?
Right. Going to Cambridge was a life-changing experience, because you realize that even though I was one of the top 5 in my class when I was doing my LLB, it didn't mean much, because when I went to Cambridge, I realized that there were 110 of us who were all in the top 5 from the class. So you rub shoulders with the brightest in the world. There are students from probably 57 to 60 countries. You learn a lot about the legal education that is imparted in the US as compared to the UK, and then again in India. There is a tremendous work ethic. My 6 months with Clifford Chance were fantastic, because I came to know the importance of why large companies in Europe and America have been, I think, for the last probably 100 years, they have been consulting lawyers before they sign contracts. When I, on the lighter side, when I joined the profession, I was still in the generation of lawyers who became litigation lawyers. So everybody, all my friends used to say, "Ki ab tu court mein jaake ladega." So the point is that the image of a lawyer, that he only stands up in the courts and fights, that is a very, very outdated image. For the last 22 years that I've been in Pune after I moved from Delhi, I have consciously reduced my litigation practice to something very specific, and where I think it needs very special kinds of skills. But I have concentrated more on the corporate, so drafting and debating of contracts, due diligence reviews, acquisitions and mergers, giving opinions on complicated legal issues. Of late, I've also started doing investigations, because a lot of multinationals which are in Maharashtra, they sometimes like an independent lawyer to inquire into the misdeeds of a particular employee. It can be the managing director, it can be somebody subordinate to him, anything. I bring a sense of impartiality and fairness to the inquiry. My father was a judge of the High Court of Delhi from 79 till 92, and my father-in-law was a judge of the Supreme Court. So I have to protect two names. I work with the work ethics of which will suit that, and I think that has got me a lot of confidence from my foreign clients, who understand that I also believe that you don't need to bribe government officers in order to get the work done. So it has stood me in very good stead, and yeah, I'm happy that I am.
Well, Manoj, you laid it out very clearly that there is no protection if you do not follow your professional institute's code of ethics. And also, another aspect which is always in everyone's mind is that how do you differentiate what would, like the difference between negligence and connivance can be a matter of interpretation in a gray area. Now, during an investigation on a large management fraud, a common question is, where was the internal auditor? After all, he or she is supposed to be reviewing and giving assurance on risks and related controls on a continuous basis. And for someone with that role, who's a trained, diligent professional and with experience, how could such an important risk be missed out? This could lead to a suspicion of the internal auditor's role as connivance and at least merits an examination. Do you think this is a legitimate suspicion? And how do you actually protect yourself when you are not really conniving?
Right. So Deepak, I think that it's a very, very legitimate suspicion, and I'm not saying this as just my opinion as an individual. I happened to mention the RICO case in just a couple of minutes ago. The RICO case is a case decided by SEBI in 2018. I will not go into the details of the case, but there the court has made exactly these observations. That how can we believe that the internal auditor did not know about what was the scale of fraud that was happening? So yes, I would like to state very specifically here that in these three categories, that is the directors, the senior management, and the auditors, the position of the auditors perhaps is the most precarious one, because negligence is something that the auditor can get away with because there is no law which punishes an auditor for negligence. But the million-dollar question is, which court will believe that the auditor is simply guilty of negligence and not connivance? So, to convince the court, because the case law doesn't support that, so the court is most likely to believe that without the connivance of the auditor, the management would not have done it. However wrong it may be, but that is the presumption, and the court has actually articulated such a presumption. So the auditors have to be extremely careful. Even if at the cost of losing a client, the whistle has to be blown. The other thing, so the connivance. Now, let me tell you, in the 2013 Companies Act, there is a section 447, which I think is a very, very dangerous section. And those of my the listeners who have at hand the Companies Act can please turn to section 447. Yes. Now, please understand that section 447 has been enforced from 2013. So prior to that, this section was not there. What does it say? It says, without prejudice to any liability, including repayment of any debt under this act or any other law for the time being in force, any person who is found to be guilty of fraud shall be punishable with imprisonment for the term which shall not be less than 6 months, but which may extend up to 10 years, and shall also be liable to fine which shall not be less than the amount involved in the fraud, but which may extend to 3 times the amount involved in the fraud. Now, the next line is very important, provided that where the fraud in question involves public interest, you just mentioned that, when it involves public interest, the term of the imprisonment shall not be less than 3 years, 3 years minimum imprisonment. Now, the same section goes on to define fraud, and that this is an interesting definition. Fraud in relation to the affairs of the company or any body corporate includes any act or omission, concealment of any fact or abuse of position committed by any person or any other person with a connivance in any manner, with intent to deceive, to gain undue advantage from, or to injure the interests of the company or its shareholders or its creditors or any other person, whether or not there is any wrongful gain or wrongful loss. Now, you can see that what fraud covers is connivance. It does not cover negligence. So as I said, negligence by per se is not punishable. But then again, which court is going to believe that the internal auditor, who has access to all the accounts and all the financial statements, who helps make the financial statements, would not have known this? Now, section 448 is specifically relates to financial statements. It says, save as otherwise provided in this act, if in any return, report, certificate, financial statement, prospectus, statement, or other document required by or for the purpose of any of the provisions of this act or the rules made thereunder, any person makes a statement which is false in any material particulars, knowing it to be false, or which omits any material fact, knowing it to be material, he shall be liable under section 447. That means minimum sentence 6 months, sometimes 3 years. Now, to make matters worse, and I'm not trying to scare anybody, I'm just telling you the truth as it is that the Prevention of Money Laundering Act in the schedule has now added section 447 of the Companies Act, which means that the moment you are found guilty of section 447 of the Companies Act, you can lose your license to practice, you can be removed as an auditor, which is all very well, but you can be convicted, jailed, and the product of the crime can be attached. It is very difficult to get bail if the Prevention of Money Laundering Act is applied to you. So here we are. The position of the auditor is far more precarious because of this. There are other sections of the IPC also which are applicable, the Indian Penal Code, which are applicable. But that apart, the problem is, number one, the directors and officers insurance does not cover internal auditors, and because you are an outsider to the company, as in you're not an employee, the tendency of the management, I'm not saying every management would do that, tendency of the management is to first protect itself, then take care of you. So that is an added danger to all the auditors.
Deepak, shall I, sorry for interrupting, I'm afraid we are running short of time. So can we now take some questions if there are any?
Okay, I just want to, Mr. Menon, I just want to add one aspect, Manoj, to what you were saying, that technical literature, technical professional literature always mentions about the best protection for an internal auditor is to exercise due to exercise competency and exercise due professional care. It's part of our principles of code of ethics. So exercising competency and due professional care, and that is our best defense. And we must have documentation to show it. However, in a typical scenario in an organization where a large management fraud has been uncovered or is under investigation, there would be significant stress and maybe even a divided board. Over here, what are the implications for officers in these situations and the internal auditor? What is the life situation, and how can the indemnity agreement protect us, especially after the internal auditor has left and has no connection with the company? He seems to be at the mercy of his past employers. We want to work fairly, but we also want to be protected. So how do we do it through an indemnity agreement?
So we are running short of time. I'll answer this question very quickly in one sentence. Nobody can avoid being summoned to court. Please understand that. There is no agreement which can stop anybody, any court, from summoning you. Okay. So however careful you may have been and however ethical you may have been, if the management or the company is called to court in a criminal court, the internal auditor will be called. Now, your best defense, as you rightly said, is your good conduct. But apart from that, the trauma that you will suffer in litigating or defending yourself and the expenses that you will incur, all that needs to be compensated. And the only way that can be done is contractually by a DNO indemnity agreement, which can be tweaked. And I've done that for several internal auditors. That will have to be tweaked, considering their seniority, the nature of business that the company is doing, whether there are any cross-border transactions, number of employees, number of states in which the company to which you are the internal auditor, it has operations. There are several factors. It is not a template that can be used randomly everywhere. I understand the profile of the internal auditor and the profile of the company, and then I tweak the contract to suit that particular individual. Yeah.
Well, thank you with that, Manoj, for taking out time from a busy schedule and for emphasizing the importance of a strong, well-worded, and a practical indemnity agreement. And thank you, IIA-Hyderabad, for this interview. We look forward to more sessions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you all. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
So
shall we take some questions? Sunil, can you please pass on some questions?
Sure,
in the
sure,
audience?
definitely. Deepak and Manoj, thank you so much. Very insightful session. There are some questions coming in. Manoj, if I can direct them to you, please.
sure.
Yeah. So the first of the questions is, correct our understanding if it is wrong, but ICAI Code of Ethics are more oriented towards practicing statutory auditors or external auditors rather than internal auditors. This is more of a clarificatory question, Manoj, if you can answer that from one of our participants.
I can
would know
answer that.
I
I
think
can
Deepak,
answer that, Manoj. Allow me. Well, there has been a revision. Please go through it, and it is that this particular section which I talked about in NOC-LAR, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 260 is applicable for chartered accountants who are in service, and I think 360, section 360 is applicable for chartered accountants who are in practice. But you can check this up, and NOC-LAR is applicable today as per ICAI for public listed companies. You've got to comply the provisions of NOC-LAR for public listed companies.
I will
Thank you
just
so
like
much.
to add here, Sunil, just
Sure.
one comment here very quickly, that even if you are acting as an independent director, as an expert, sitting on a publicly listed company, you are as vulnerable as an executive or a non-executive director.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Manoj and Deepak. Very quickly, the next question. Now, there's an intent as a word referred to in Section 447, Manoj, of the Companies Act. How do you decide on the word intent?
As I said, I can go on with the case law where how the courts have termed it. You see, intent is what we call it's called mens rea, the guilty intention. The guilty intention is deciphered from the facts of the case. In most of the cases I have seen the courts, there is a presumption which is against the internal auditor. Where there is a corporate fraud, the presumption is that how could you not have known? So the intent is there. So the intent can be passive or active. Passive is you knew that something wrong was happening, but you intentionally, with an intent, guilty intent, let it happen because you were promised some benefit. The other is the more dangerous. You actively participated in forging, manipulating the accounts, the electronic signature, whatever else, the electronic record, and you actively participated in the fraud. So intent can be passive or it can be active, and it is derived from the facts of the case. But the presumption mostly is against the internal auditor. That is why I made a statement that the position of the internal auditor is more precarious than the board or the management.
Brilliantly articulated, Manoj. Thank you so much. And thank you to all the participants and Manoj, Deepak, a wonderful session. On behalf of Vizag Audit Club and Hyderabad chapter, a special thank you to both of you.
Thank you
And
so much.
it's a pleasure to have all of you. Thank you so much. And there was still a technical issue continuing with our second speaker, Vijay. With that said, in the interest of time and to be respectful of all the participants and their time, we would defer that technical IT session to some other date. With that said, I will hand it over now to Tinku. And Tinku, over to you, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sunil. Thank you very much. So it's been, my honor and absolute privilege to be given an opportunity to propose vote of thanks to for the sessions we had today. In fact, we had a very engaging, fascinating, and enriching experience. It's been an absolute delight to listen to the dialogue between Mr. Manoj and Mr. Deepak Wadhawan. So on behalf of IIA Hyderabad chapter and Vizag Club, our sincere thanks to IIA senior leadership team, TK sir and Nikhel sir, for gracing this occasion and advocating internal audit awareness. We express our gratefulness to Mr. Deepak Wadhawan and Mr. Manoj for a very interesting and enriching dialogue on legal risk and indemnity. So finally, on the behalf of IIA Hyderabad chapter and Vizag Club, thank you audience for participating and hope you have enjoyed the session. And thank you all and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, everyone. Bye. Bye, Tinku. Thank you. Thank you, TK, Nikhil, everyone.
Thank you,
All
TK,
the
sir.
best. Well done. Thanks. Have a great time. Yeah. Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Goodbye.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, man. Bye, Charith. Bye, everybody. Sunil. Thank you.
Bye, sir. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye, sir.
Thank you.